So this machine is part of the domain. You can see it is in the domain, right? And I'm going to install the Veeam Backup software on this machine to back up this virtual machine. I'm going to back up this virtual machine using Veeam Backup and going to store here in this backup folder. Right, I have already got some backup files. I'm just going to delete these ones. I don't want this because I'm going to create new backup files. Right, let's go delete everything. That's all gone for good. Right, and also I have got my domain controller. This is my domain controller. This is the FaceItNet domain controller. This is my Hyper-V server. Hyper-V server is also attached to the domain. Right, you can see this is also part of the domain. So inside the Hyper-V server, I have one virtual machine. It's called Windows 10 virtual machine. So using the Veeam is not inside the Hyper-V. Veeam is sitting outside the Hyper-V, right? I'm not going to use this machine. Power off this machine. I'm going to use this machine to install Veeam. So Veeam is not sitting inside the Hyper-V. It's sitting outside the Hyper-V. And the domain controller is also sitting outside the Hyper-V. But I'm going to back up the virtual machine which is inside the Hyper-V server. Right, so that's the machine I'm going to back up. So let's start from here. So we have got the Veeam Backup software, the latest version 11 community edition. So let's double click and start the installation. Click here to install. It's preparing the startup installation. Right, here we go. So licensing, accept the terms and conditions, and licensing, go to next. You don't need to put the license here, the license key, because I'm using the community version. If you don't have license, it will just take it as a community version. The only limitation we have is only it supports up to 10 jobs at a time. So click next. I'm going to install in the C drive. Right, hope I have enough space on this computer. Yeah, we have 36 GB free, so it should be all right. Click next. It's failed some of these services. You can see it failed some of these. It doesn't matter. You don't need to worry about. You don't need to go download it. Click install. That will install all the prerequisites. Right. It's installing all the prerequisite files. Right. The files that I needed for. Right. Installing. Right. Here we go. We are good. It's installed everything we required for this Veeam software. Click next. Right, I'm just going to leave the default. Right, in my network I don't technically have specific firewalls rules or anything. If you have any firewall rules, you can change the port numbers, you can leave it up, right? But in my case, I'm just going to leave with default. So click install. Now this is going to install the Veeam Backup service, right? When you install this software, we're not just installing the backup, we're installing the replication system as well. So we can configure virtual machine backups as well as we can configure the replications, right? We will do both. We will first complete the backup part, then we'll move on to the replication and we'll see how we can configure replications using Veeam system. This is going to take time, right? So we can wait here for a couple of minutes. It might take maybe 5 to 10 minutes. So let's wait here 5 to 10 minutes and then we'll continue from there. So it's installing all the services required, the agent services and other services, and a lot of other dependency packages like .NET and all these packages, and also SQL information. So it takes time to complete this all, right? There you go. So the installation is finished. Right, click finish, completed. Right, fantastic. Now it almost took 17 minutes to install the almost around 17 minutes to install the software, right? So just double click here to start with. Right, you see here the option use the Windows session authentication. The reason is I can log in as see FaceItNet administrator, and then I can type their password here, but I don't really need to because I logged in on this computer with the same exact account. So I can use the Windows session authentication. Click connect. Right, now we are just launching the application. Here we go. Good. So complete the components update. Click finish. Right, now we have the app here. For us to start any jobs, to create any job here, see it says that we can't do until otherwise we complete the basic settings, right? So we're going to do that one, right? So what we do first, let's start with the infrastructure. So we need to add the infrastructure into the system, right? So we have a virtual infrastructure which is for Hyper-V, because I'm going to back up the Hyper-V machine. And also we can add some physical machines manually, which is my demand controller. I can add it as a manual because it runs on a VMware workstation. So let's start with Hyper-V. I'm going to just add the virtual infrastructure on the Hyper-V. So add the server, click here. My server is the Hyper-V server, Windows Hyper-V server 2008 or later. Click then. And you can provide the domain DNS name of that server, or you can provide the IP address. So I have a DNS name Hyper-V01. I believe that's the DNS name of this machine. Let's see the name of this machine. Oh no. Come on. Right, so the name is HV01, right? So Hyper-V01. So Hyper-V01. Click next. It's a Microsoft, not the SCCM or System Virtual Machine, which is what we had before SCCM. Not the cluster. This is a standalone one single machine. So I'm going to click on standalone server. Click next. It's going to ask the authentication, credential authentication, to get access to install the agent on that machine. So we can add the agent credentials here. So my domain, so / and then the password. What? Yeah. All right. Cool. Next, signet ADM and STRTR. Okay. Click OK, and click next. Well, it's going to install these two in the Hyper-V service, and I installed the Veeam before and added this machine to Veeam repository. So that's the reason I can see it here. But otherwise, what happens? It's going to install it there, right? Click apply. Right. Now it's trying to see whether I can install, and it picked that there is a Windows 10 virtual machine is available inside that. So detecting OS version is fine. Configuring database. Yep. Server is saved. Next. Finish. Right. We can see now the Hyper-V server is here. And we can see inside the Hyper-V, we got a Windows 10 machine as well. So if you go back to here, we can see there's a Hyper-V Windows 10 machine. So it picked the Windows. It's not this Windows 10. You can see this is capital W. This is small w. The virtual machine here is capital. So technically it picked the Hyper-V virtual machine, right? Not the machine itself. Right. We have added one machine on the virtual infrastructure. We can add manual E. We can add this domain controller as well. Right. So let's try and add the domain controller here. Add a physical server. So manual physical infrastructure, unmanage. We should be able to backup infrastructure. Manage servers, Hyper-V, Microsoft server here. Sorry, that's here. Add a server. Let's say DC. I believe the name of this machine itself is also, computer name is also DC. Let me see what's the name of this machine. You can type host name to find out the name, otherwise you can just go and check it here. DC01. DC01. Alright. It's the same credential should work for this as well. Already exist, same reason. We had a Veeam backup service before, so that's what I can see, it's already there. Otherwise, it's just going to install the agent. It might take some more time to complete, otherwise, that's the only option, right? So we have added the other server as well. So we have a Hyper-V server, standalone, and we have physical server, which is like another Microsoft server. So that's backup infrastructure, right? And let's go back here, backup repositories. So backup repositories is where you are going to save all your backups, right? When you do the backup, this is where you're going to save the backups. This is infrastructure, this is your network, but this is where you're going to save the files. So I can, as of now, you can see it got Windows 10, which is this physical machine, right? This has got 29 GB free, and it tells you that's the space that if I create a backup, this is where it's going to save everything inside this 29 GB free space. I don't want to save everything in my Veeam server itself, right? If you want, you can create an iSCSI storage and attach it here as an additional 2 terabyte to iSCSI storage and attach it, and you can save it there. Otherwise, if your Hyper-V machine has got a space, just use the space to put all your backup. It is not the best practice because what I'm trying to do is I'm going to backup from C drive, because this Hyper-V Windows 10 machine is sitting here. So this is what the Windows 10 Hyper-V machine. Right, I'm going to back up this machine from C drive and transfer into the F drive, just because I don't have another separate data store. But in real world, you can, even on the physical machine here, you can attach it. I'll show you some of the real world examples what exactly happens. So I'm going to create the repository here, add a backup repository, right? Not network, direct attach here, Microsoft Windows. So repository name Hyper-V 01, because I'm going to install on Hyper-V 01, right? Repository server Hyper-V 01, right? So that's mean it picked it from my infrastructure. If I don't add the infrastructure, then I have to go and add one by one. I have to populate and add one by one. The good thing is, since I have added everything under my infrastructure, I can just pick it from there. So I'll pick it here and I'll see how much free space I have by clicking on the populate button. So click on the populate and you can see I have got a C and I've got F drive. F drive is completely free. I'm going to use this as a backup repository as well. Right? So it just get the space. Come on. It will show you 99.99. Yep. Maximum concurrent task. How many tasks you can do it on this? Limit to maybe 1. If you want to limit the backup write read speed, you can do it from here, right? So here, backups and decompress, backups, and all these options are here. I'm not going to change it. I'm just going to leave them as default. Next, the file system on the specified volume does not support fast cloning. We recommend use the RisersFX volume format, right? RisersFX is another formatting, right? I've got just a basic NTFS. So click proceed. Right. So it's going to use this Hyper-V, right? And instant recovery write cache, where they put the cache files, right? You can put the cache files in the F drive, right? Next, apply, right? So it's creating the files for backups inside the drive. Remember, I deleted the files I had before, so it's going to create. You can see here, right? It's no files. This is where I'm going to keep the backup. This is my cache files. I'm going to keep all the cache files here, right? So looks good. Everything is there. All good. It's done. Nice. Click next. Finish. Change the configuration backup location to the newly created repository. Yes. Right. So I wanted this as the default backup location, right? You can go back and check everything again, right? Just to make sure that your configurations are done. Access permissions, if you have got any permissions, right? Repository access, deny everyone. So it's only the system can work, or all these permissions are there, right? So pretty much I'm ready to create my first job, right? I have my machines and everything. Let's go to home, create the first job. Right, I'm going to back up the virtual machine because it's a virtual machine here. I'm going to back up this one. Click on virtual machine. Let's say Hyper-V 01. Let's make a meaningful. Win 10 to Hyper-V 01 F drive. So the name itself tells you that I'm going to back up the Hyper-V Windows 10 machine to Hyper-V F drive, right? This is just a meaningful name. We are just adding some meaningful names here. Next. So the machine we can simply add because all the machines being added to my network. So click here, add, right? Next. Where do you want a repository? It's a default. I think I changed the default to this one, but it hasn't changed, right? So you can technically, that's the path. Anyway, so how many days you want to retain the backups? 7 days. You can increase it to 30 days, 40 days. It's up to you, right? But as long as if you got enough space. And if you click on the advanced, you will see more options. I'm doing an incremental backup, not the differential backup. Differential backup needs more space. So incremental backup doesn't need that much space. And here the synthetic backup is turned on for Saturdays, which means every Saturday it's going to create a full backup, right? I can change the day, depends on if you have got multiple systems running backups. You can change every machine to do a backup, full backup on a different day, just to make sure that the full backup is going to be a big file. So we don't want every full backup runs on the same day, same time. So you can just change it to different days to manage your backup infrastructure easily. Since it's one machine, I'll leave it as default, but you can change it. Also, if you wish, you can create full backups, right? You can create Saturday because it's picked from here, synthetic backup. Otherwise, you can just pick it every month as well on top of that synthetic backup. So that what synthetic backup does, without you do anything, every Saturday it does a full backup and then it does the incremental backup then up to the next Friday. Then Saturday again it does a full backup, right? But here every month I'm getting a full backup. So you don't need to do both. So I can just remove it because I got a full backup here as well. So we will just remove that. If you want, you can perform notifications by enabling email notifications here, right? As long as if you got a SMTP server configure information, you can do it. Otherwise, you can just use your Google SMTP, right? smtp.gmail.com with a port number 465, and then you can put your username and password for authentication, right? So if you put the username password for the authentication, then it will work, right? So that's pretty much basics what we have here, right? I'm sure that I don't want to enable this one. Yep, done. Next. Default, leave them. Guest OS processing options, and then you specify when do you want to run the backup. Daily at this time, right? Maximum try 3 times. If it's failed first time, wait 10 minutes and run it again. Failed, wait 10 minutes, run it again. Failed, wait 10 minutes, run it again. If not, just send an error message. It doesn't work. That's it. Click next. Finish. So my first backup job is done. I've just created my first backup job. It's not going to start now because I have set to start 10 p.m. So you can see 10 p.m. I can manually start. If I click here, done. It's going to start my backup. You can see it's starting my backup. When it completes the backup, it will put the file into this location. Right, you can see here the name exactly shows here. It's going to put the files here, right? If you refresh and see, it will come all the files. Once it completes the backup, it will just transfer the file over here. Right, so my first backup job is done, right? If you want, you can create more backup jobs, right? Depends on. If you want to create another backup job, say we want to back up the domain controller here. So it's not virtual machine. I'm just going to say it's a Windows computer. Right. Why I say it's a Windows computer? Because it doesn't sit inside the Hyper-V machine, right? So that's why I said it's a Windows machine. Add here, it's a server, right? It's a workstation server, or you can specify, right? If you say workstation, then it's a workstation. If you say server, it's a server, right? Next, I'll say name PC01. to Hyper-V01 F drive. Next, add individual computer. DC01 is my computer. Username password is there, same. Okay. Next, you want to back up the entire computer, or you want to back up the volume files, or you want to back up just the files, right? So you can pick it. So I'm going to back up the entire machine, so that's easy. In case if there's any failure, I can just restore this machine and run my business. I don't need to reconfigure everything from the beginning. Destination, where do you want to save this file? To the destination, right? Veeam Backup, shared folder, local storage, right? If you have got a local storage, you can specify. Otherwise, you can put it in the shared folder or Veeam Backup repository. So I'm going to put it into the Veeam Backup repository. Next, all right, that's the file name. All right, where do you want to keep it? Hyper-V, the same file. 7 days, I'm going to keep this file. The same settings, right? Maintenance, synthetic backup, Saturday, right? Everything is there. Next, you don't want to do the caching, right? It's going to get more space. I'll leave that one. Next, and start the job. Same thing, 3 times 10 minutes. Apply, finish. Right, my second job is here. Right, you can see the difference here. This is Hyper-V backup. This is Windows agent policy based backup, because there's two different system, right? I'm using, because it's normal, the Hyper-V machine backup system. Let's come back here. I can see my previous backup, Windows 10 from Hyper-V. You can see the file. It's only 6 GB, but the real size of that virtual machine was 10 GB. If you look at it, the real size of the virtual machine here, it's 12 GB. The reason, it just compressed the file so that it can transfer quickly and save the files in the destination location. I can also start this backup. Oh, it's already running, I believe. Yeah, just now it started. And we will see this file also in this folder. Match is running. I'll start. Right. Okay. So that's running. Good. So that's pretty much the backup configurations.